So we are live. So welcome to day 5 of the Plant Power Challenge. My name is Elisa, and I'm so happy to be here with you again today to talk about a topic that is pretty near and dear to my heart, which is, ways of creating or bringing more plants into your life, into your diet. So I mentioned way back on day 1 that I started small. And if you're just joining for today, if this is your first day watching, then welcome. But my recommendation, whether you're trying to add more fruits and vegetables to your diet or any other change that you might be trying to make in your life, is to start small. It's when you try and start too big and make it unmanageable, it might be okay for a day or two, but for the long run, it's just harder to sustain. So if you're trying to add more fruits and vegetables into your diet, I really recommend you pick maybe one of the tips that I shared throughout the week and just focus on that. Don't try and change everything overnight, because it's like shooting yourself in the foot, because it makes it too big and then you're more likely to just give up because it's too hard and not sustainable. So some of the things we talked about, if you're just catching up, I mentioned having a plan, starting out with something like a meal planner, also journaling about your food and what you're eating, so you know where you're starting out, and maybe figuring out where you can add more fruits and vegetables. And then we looked at different types of swaps for meat, for dairy, all different kinds of meal options, because there are tons of swaps out there that are just incredible. And I shared a few of them I shared a few of my favorite recipes in the emails that I've been sending out. So if you haven't been getting the emails, if you haven't signed up, you can still sign up and you'll get the whole series of the emails. So you'll get the recipes and the tips that I've shared in those emails. And yesterday we also talked about juicing and smoothies and shakes and ways to get creative there. So today we're going to go a little bit more outside the box, or think outside the box. And this is, about ways of getting creative of how you get your fruits and vegetables. So for most of us, it's going to the grocery store or maybe the farmer's market or the CSA. And I'm really excited because our CSA is starting this week. And if you don't know what a CSA is, it's customer supported agriculture. It's a great way. Now, depending upon where you live, you might have needed to sign up for yours already, but it's something to think about for down the road, or maybe they still have shares available. So basically you buy a share of, the harvest for a local farm. And so the one that I belong to, every year, earlier in the year, we actually buy the share. We pay a certain dollar amount, and you can buy like a full share or a half share. And then every week we get to go and get a basket full of, or a box full of vegetables and fruits. And they let us, they'll put certain ones out. So maybe they have a whole bunch of tomatoes there, and they'll tell us we can have, 6 tomatoes or whatever it is for that week. And then we take our 6 tomatoes, and then they'll say, and you can have, a watermelon, or, 10 ears of corn, or whatever it is, and you pick and choose, and and it's really kind of cool. And the CSA I belong to also has a whole separate area where they have herbs growing as well as wildflowers, so you can pick and cut some herbs or wildflowers for the week too. So I always think that's a nice bonus. So shout out to Terra Fauna Farms. Anyway, so that is one way to get your fruits and vegetables, and I definitely am a fan of, the farmers market, CSA, support your local farmers. Other things that you can do. So maybe you have space in your yard to grow a garden, or maybe you don't. If you don't, you can do things such as I mentioned yesterday, which is doing sprouts on your counter, or actually I put mine in the pantry, but you can make your own sprouts. And you can also on your own counter do things like growing herbs or microgreens. You can use buckets or empty gallon bottles to plant. So you can get really creative, and there are lots of YouTube videos out there if you want to do something like that. But again, that's thinking a little bit outside the box. And even more outside of that box of growing your own greens is kind of foraging for plants that you might not think of as food. And those are things that we actually call them, or they're called edible invasives, or another way of thinking about it is weeds. And these might be things that you normally pull out of your yard. Things like dandelions have amazing, amazing nutritional value to them. So I'm a fan of dandelions. And another favorite of mine is thistle. And a lot of people, get upset. And actually, before I learned about thistle, I would be pulling thistle and the dandelions out of my garden but they grow abundantly everywhere. And the nutritional value in them is, unbeatable. So yesterday I'd mentioned about juicing, and you can juice with either or both of those. And actually dandelions, you can use every single thing. You can use the root to make a tea. You can saute the greens. You could juice with them. There are lots of things that you can do with the dandelions, and the same thing with the thistle. Now with the thistle, what I tend to do is juice it, but you can juice it one of two ways. I have a really good juicer, so it will go through my juicer without creating any issues. But depending upon your juicer, you may want to use a blender instead. And so you can make a juice with the thistle, actually combining it with some water and some apple, but again, cutting out the core. You don't want to leave the seeds in there, and maybe a little bit of lemon. And then if your blender doesn't blend it up super great, if it's not a super high powered blender, you might need to strain it to get, the thistles out. You don't want to really, feel that or have that texture. Now you might be saying, well, how do I know which not fruits and vegetables, which weeds that I can eat, what's safe, and, how can I use them? There are lots of books out there. There's even a really cool app. So there's an app that we use called Picture This. That is a paid app. There are other free apps that I've tried that weren't as accurate when it came to telling you. So what we do with the Picture This app, or what I do with that app, is actually take a picture of anything. And it can be like you just see a tree and you're kind of curious what it is. So you take the picture of the leaf, and it'll bring up what it thinks based on the picture that you made. So that's one way to go, because it's really important to know if you're going to eat something, if you're going to ingest something, that you're actually eating the right thing. You don't want to eat something that could potentially be poisonous for you. So always, do your research first. And it's better if if it's in your yard, because then if there have been chemicals on it or not, because you don't want that extra, any pesticides on the things that you're eating. But so if it's your yard, what's going on there. But you can also get these things in the wild if it's an area that hasn't been sprayed. And then in addition to using an app, there's a really cool book that I refer to a lot of times. It's called The Wild Wisdom of Weeds by Katrina Blair. And she breaks down 13 essential plants for human survival. And these plants are found basically on every continent. So you could find them, really anywhere. And if you think about it, like we always see that dandelion, you could be walking down the street in New York City, tons of people walking, there's a little crack in the cement and a dandelion can come up. And that's, just, testament to their thrivability. And so again, they can be found just about anywhere. There are pictures in here. There are recipes too. So if you need some recipes, if this is a great resource. And it gives you an idea, it gives you a starting point. And just like I mentioned earlier, start small. You don't have to go out and find all 13 of these. And also don't think that there's only 13. There are way more than what's listed here in this book as well. But in my yard, we've seen things. I mentioned the dandelion, which most people have, the thistle. There's also things like lamb's quarter and chickweed. And I'm trying to think of some of the other good ones that are in here, but there's a little table of contents in here. Let me see if I can find it for you really quickly. And of course I didn't have it. Oh, there's chickweed, which I love, clover, dock, grasses, different grasses you can use. I mentioned lamb's quarter, mustard, plantain, and a few others, but get creative and you can just pick one and try it for even the whole season. And then, you might start with dandelions because they are super abundant. And one that I did find out about is we have daisies growing in our garden. You can actually eat the daisy leaves, and they have a little sweet taste to them. And I just, when I was picking my daisies, or I noticed my daisies were growing, I just got curious about it. And that's kind of the thing, get curious. So I did a search, are daisy leaves edible? And sure enough, they are. And like I said, they have a really nice little sweet taste to them. So again, whenever you're trying something new, like one of these, we'll just call them weeds just to make it easier. Start with a little bit, just taste a little bit, see, what your taste buds tell you about it. Now, because these are wild plants, it might taste a little different to your taste buds at first. And that goes the same with any of the things. So if you're trying a new fruit or vegetable, or you're trying some sprouts, it's going to be a new taste. And so when it's new, your taste buds might think, okay, and It might take a little bit of getting used to, but what happens is you're going to find that your taste buds are going to shift over time and you're going to start craving these things. And if you don't believe me, think about if you're a coffee drinker, back when you first had your first sip of coffee, you might have been like, oh, not so sure, it's kind of bitter. And then you started to really get a taste for it. And now you might be where you need to have coffee every morning. And it's not just the caffeine, you really enjoy the taste. So knowing that your taste buds can shift over time. And I've actually found that mine really have shifted through, some of the changes that I've made with my eating, because when, I crave fruits and vegetables. And when I go to like a picnic or a party and somebody's asking me about dessert, I usually ask for something like, fruit, because that's what I crave, the fresh fruits and vegetables. And maybe you're not there. Maybe you're not there yet, but that's okay. It's all about those small changes. And then I had one other tip that I wanted to share with you. I just found out about this the other day and I had to include this. So it was an article about don't throw out your watermelon rind. So, most people throw out their watermelon rind. I don't know anybody who's ever used it that I've known personally, but you can actually use the watermelon rind for a couple things. So the other day we talked about composting, but that doesn't really up level your nutrition a whole lot. I mean, it will up level your garden if you put it on your compost or on your garden, on the ground. But the rind is super high in nutrients and you can use it. Well, of course, it's high in fiber. It's going to aid your digestion. And guys, the one big thing that you really need to know is for a good microbiome, good gut health is high fiber. Fiber is one of the things that we need the most of. It can also lower your blood pressure due to high levels of citrulline. But, how do you use your watermelon rind? Like, do you want to eat the watermelon rind like by itself? Maybe not. There's actually a way that you can pickle it and have it as, a pickled watermelon. So our pickled watermelon rind. So that's, a little suggestion for you there. I haven't tried it yet. So if you have, I'm curious to hear what you think about it. But I love thinking about ways that we can, maximize our nutrition and then also maximize what you have. So you've already, invested in that watermelon. So you may as well get, biggest bang for your buck out of it. So these are, my tips for thinking outside the box. I'm curious if you have something else that you might do that's a little different, or if maybe there was, something that was a big aha this week that you want to share or incorporate into your life. Maybe it's something that you're sharing with your partner or your kids. So please feel free to comment below. Remember that there is a drawing at the end of this week, and I'll be drawing based on, comments on the videos. So you have till 9 o'clock tonight to comment, and also emails that I've received. And if you tag a friend, and also, even though we're on day 5 and we're wrapping up here, it's not too late. So if you have a friend who might really benefit from some of these tips, still pass along the information, because they'll still be able to get all the emails, get the workbook, get the links to the video. So they'll, be able to take advantage of all these tips and maybe incorporate some of this into their lives. So sharing is caring. Remember that. And if you like what you've heard this week, and you want to know more, please feel free to reach out to me. Send me a message, send me an email. And that way we can set up a time to chat and we can talk about, other ways that you can go beyond, or, just the start of getting plant power to really thriving every day in your life. And thank you so much for this time together. And I hope you have a wonderful Friday, and I will be talking to you soon. Namaste.